I guess we should start with what we were just talking about, right? Like one more week. Traffic patterns change, but life gets easier or more hectic, Jim?
It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about just my personal life and everybody's personal life, it gets a little bit easier where I'm not running into three different camps. But if you're talking about work, it gets a little interesting.
Yeah. So we've talked a couple times on this call about how our industry, there's certain moments in the calendar year that kind of affect our industry. I think this is one of them, right?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah,
your history? What's your experience with it?
Yeah, this is one of them. Everybody's kind of settling back in the routine. You've got little league sports, you've got high school sports, you got band, football starting up, and then you got the Cowboys. That's a little lesser, but then you've got the strange one where the state fair starts at the end of September, and that could just be October starting, but they coincide around the same point, and it's all this cycle in Texas.
Yeah, and but I think school has a little more weight than some of the others, right?
Oh yeah, no, this is the
for
biggest
sure.
one that we see. Absolutely. This is like a life routine that's restarting, right? So you're going like everything that you've been doing the last 3 months is kind of changing.
Yeah. So I popped this up here. First day of school's Wednesday. I don't think I ever started school on a Wednesday. That's weird. But no break until Thanksgiving. Rockwall ISD.
That's the 21-22 calendar. They do have a fall break in October.
Wait a minute. That was 21, 22.
Yeah,
First day of school is the 15th. Sorry. And then fall break in October. So that's nice. And so obviously this fall break will have a small effect on our industry, but Monday the 15th is a big date on a calendar that we just expect people that if they haven't sold their house by then, they're just going to hunker down and say, I'm going to ride the school year out, all those things that they say, right?
Yep. Yeah, no, you're right on that fall break. I can't remember Rockwall ever having a fall break.
I was looking at the 2021. There wasn't one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, interesting. Okay. So anyway, worth mentioning, right? And of course, traffic patterns will drastically change next Monday. All right. Let's start at the lake today. So in Henderson County, 86 new actives, 3 coming soon, 16 active option, 28 pending. That's the most they've had pending since back in June. So I found that interesting, and they had 25 sold over the last 7 days, which, man, that's a pretty healthy number. Like these numbers are pretty strong for a lake market in late summer, no?
Yeah, no, I think so. When it's as hot and dry as it's been, I think that's real strong.
Absolutely. Okay, Rockwall County, 211 opportunities to sell, I'll call it. 42 active option, 52 pending, and 46 sold. That number to me, now we had a couple months or a couple weeks back here, and we had a 47 here. It doesn't really stick out like a sore thumb in this county. I think that's a healthy number for a second week of the month kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Because you're really just looking at that, really the first week in that 90, you're looking at that last week of July. So I don't think it's anything to really bat an eye on.
So I've been keeping my eye on expireds. Rockwall County, pretty healthy expired. We're not having any kind of spike in expired listings here. Now, when I get to Dallas County, 1,216 active, which has actually come down a little bit, which we haven't seen that in some of the other counties. 345 option contracts, 552 pending, which is high comparatively. And solds were 457. I still think that's a decent sold number for a second week of a month, Of course, this had 4th of July in it. But the number that kind of caught me off guard, Jim, is the first of the month is when most realtors write their listing expiration dates, right? So almost all these listings expired on July 31st. This is the second week of the month that we're seeing a spike in expireds. That number is a little bit of an outlier in Dallas County for a second week of the month. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you look at the interest rates going up, Dallas County just has such a wide array of homes and price points. And when we start talking about your first time home buyer, I think you've got a lot of areas that are lower income that kind of you need that lower interest rate to help with the rising prices.
Yeah.
I haven't taken a look at where all the expireds are coming
All
from.
right. So watch this. I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
So Collin County, 58, second week of the month. So, and I'm just, it's a change in trend. Denton County, 33. So all of a sudden I find it weird that something's expiring on the second week of the month, but I guess it could be school starting. I'll list my house up till school starts and then we'll expire it. I don't know. I thought it was worthy of a mention because the trend of expired listings has changed a little bit.
Yeah, and I think we're going to continue to see it just with how the cycle of the 6-month listing goes, with interest rates going up, with prices going up, and now we've kind of hit this shift. And so I think we were already pressing prices, and then we started shifting. A lot of agents don't pay attention to the numbers, and they kind of got their hands caught a little bit, and maybe that's what it is right there.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe this is a pricing conversation, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Dallas County, like I said, 457 closings. Kaufman had 67 sold, 76 pending. Still decent. I don't want to say East Metroplex, still holding pretty strong. And then the only other Denton County had that 33, like I said. So what are we seeing in the numbers, Jim?
We're still seeing a good amount of new listings come aboard. The pendings have been interesting if you're kind of watching just the cycle of these two graphs I kind of sent over. If you look at the one on the left, you've got the new listings, and we've had 2 of our best months listing, 4 of our best months listing. Really, it's been a great listing summer. And you can extend that back 10 years. It doesn't matter. Those are the best months ever. Then on the right, if you start looking at supply demand, what we're talking about with pricing, supply is up, demand has come down. And so there's a pricing conversation there. But if you want to know how to kind of plan your fall and winter out, I highlighted that 2018 graph. It's kind of a mixture of that 18 and 19 graph where you've got a single peak, but I think we're going to see some deeper valleys like we did in that 18, and we're going to see some sharper spikes coming out in 2023.
I agree. I think anytime things change, there's a little nervous energy out there. There's an emotional response, and then it settles, right? Mm-hmm. So, for instance, interest rates go up. There's a nervous energy. People are a little uncertain, and then it settles, and then we get comfortable with the new rate, right? But in the change in that short run going up to it, it just creates a little bit of a nervous energy that it takes a logical conversation to help people navigate it, right?
Yeah. And what I like about that pending graph was if you take out that 2021 or 20 and 2021 part of the graph, we look pretty healthy compared to where we were pre-pandemic, right? Where our rises were. And so I think it's overall a nice market to be going through right now. I mean, we had a higher peak than we had in 2019. and like you said, we're correcting right now, so we're going to see some steeper drops. But
Are you saying
overall,
this peak right here
yeah,
was higher than this peak right here?
right, not a whole lot, but we're
But
seeing
still,
we saw a rise out of the pre-pandemic 2019. So I think overall it's a really healthy market. We're coming out from that crazy pandemic line there.
yeah.
And I think this is sustainable.
Well, I think you put a bracket. I don't know if y'all can see
Yeah.
my cursor. You put a bracket around 2020 and 2021 and just say pandemic, unusual, not predictable. And then if you start to look at the trend line we're in now, comparatively to 2019 and back, we're pretty normal. It's a pretty normal real estate market. It's just how short our short-term memory is good, right? Our long-term memory is bad. No comments. Yet we're just used to running at a space. I'll ride the Peloton every now and then, and she'll say, "Oh, you're going to run at 100 cadence," and then all of a sudden we're going to slow down to 80 cadence. Well, that feels really slow. But if I was doing 80 all along, it doesn't feel slow, right? Yeah. It's just the slowdown that makes you feel like, oh, makes sense.
Yep, that's a really
all right. So let's talk about some fun hot topics. Tell me about this. So Opendoor got smacked.
Yeah, they got hit pretty hard. And honestly, I've seen some of their offers come through, and it drove me nuts every time I heard one of those advertisements on how we can save you. There's always the hidden fees. There's always the fee that they pop in a week out from closing. I was glad that the FTC actually paid attention to it. So $62 million fine, and they have 30 days to protest it. But they did an open fundraising about 2 years ago, and they got several $100 million. This cannot make investors feel warm and fuzzy at all. And then at the end of the article, it talks about how once the 30-day period is over, they'll have a $46,000 per violation fine. Pretty hefty.
Yeah. I'm just looking at an old Opendoor advertisement, see what it said real quick. But at the end of the day, we're all accountable to what we advertise, and we're all accountable to what we market our business around. And the FTC, go back to real estate school. It's a real thing. Like, you cannot deceive the consumer or you will get your hand smacked. And that's basically what happened here. Is the reason we have licenses as real estate professionals is because the government wants to protect the consumer in asset buying and selling. And it's the same thing with the stockbroker and the stock market. And you have to have a license in these series licenses because they want to know that you have a higher obligation, a higher fiduciary to do right by the consumer. And that's what happened here, right? Yep, so it's just a reminder for all of us, not so much a haha, look at you, Opendoor conversation, yet I don't think Opendoor is going away.
No, I don't either.
And to that tune, the next article says Zillow and Opendoor team up to provide cash offers to consumers. Yeah. This came out today or yesterday, I guess it was. I need to log in, but yeah. Makes sense.
Yep.
So I think the iBuyer was something that showed up in a price appreciation market because it was easy for them to buy and wait out the appreciation. It was also, our sellers were coming from a place of excess, and the value in the consumer mind of the real estate professional wasn't at an all-time high. Yet, as the market shifts, as things start to turn, the perceived value of the real estate agents go way up, right? Now, it's our job to communicate that and make sure we're really crystal clear in how we bring value to a transaction. But I don't know, what would you say, Jim?
No, the only other thing I'd add is what you ended on the other article with, you don't think they're going away. This is absolutely, they're not going away. I thought it was really eye-opening how quick of a shift they did, and how quickly they and Zillow kind of gave each other a high five and said, hey, let's fail together. But yeah, it's a really interesting partnership.
Yeah. Well, I think
especially with Zillow being on the cusp of FSBOs also.
They are. And I read in here, and I don't want to spend too much time, but Zillow kind of had some rough second quarters.
Yeah.
Their financial wasn't that great. So to turn around and partner with Opendoor, it just tells me Zillow's grasping at trying to find their financial model, or their business model at that of the future. Because I think the Zillow used to be the giant lead aggregator out there on the web, and I think it's gotten watered down a little bit over time. I don't think our consumers are telling our agents as much, oh, I saw the house on Zillow, where 4 years ago, that's all you heard, and it just pissed us all off, right?
Yep.
So they're getting watered down a little bit, and they're having to remember, this is the downside of being a publicly traded company. They have to make returns. So they're going to have to do something like this. Anyway, I thought this was a really interesting talking point. So Mark King was at Inman News. Inman News was last week, and he made a comment about real estate's becoming consumer centric. So the best way to explain this is, at one point in time, 50 years ago, the industry operated around broker centric, meaning everybody believed the broker was the king of the hill, and it all mattered around what brokerage sign was in your yard, and the consumer, the agents, and the broker all focused that whoever the broker was king of the hill. Well, in the 80s, actually Keller was a big part of it. We said, no, we believe it's agent centric, meaning agents are the center of the transaction. The agent is the customer. The agent builds their brand. The broker supports the agent's brand. And there was a big period of time where it was all about the agent, and the agent was able to build a big model. And I still think our industry is there today. What he's saying is he believes there's a third shift where it's going to become all about the consumer. And you see it here where he's talking about the real estate industry is becoming more consumer centric amid an ongoing market shift. And I just think the consumer is becoming more and more educated around the real estate industry, and more driving the transaction instead of participating in the transaction. What do you see, Jim?
Yeah, there's more tools than ever for the consumer to use. We really need to be there to be that guide through that, and to help disseminate the information and let them know what, when they get told something, or if they see something kind of similar to if you hop on the web and look at WebMD, of what does it really mean? How can we navigate through some of the storms and get to the ultimate closing? But no, I think if you don't have a mindset and a business that is all about your consumer, I think that he's exactly right. You're going to end up losing business or getting left in the dust. Yeah.
I mean, you're bringing up medical. How many people do you hear stories where they have taken control of their own health care and almost healed themselves homeopathically or whatever? I don't understand it all, so I'm not, disclaimer, I know nothing. But yeah, I hear the stories, right? Like people go online and find what diet is better for, all this stuff. So there's a shift where 20 years ago, you just went to the doctor and the doctor told you what to do, right? And that in the end user, the consumer is getting smarter around their own healthcare to where they're in a little more of a position of driving how they receive healthcare. And that's happening in the real estate industry too, is like the consumer is growing up in how they understand things and they're driving it more and more. If you if you get emotional thinking about it from a real estate standpoint, think about it from a Wall Street standpoint. Like how many people do their own investing these days, right? And go put their money in Ameritrade or whatever, or versus using a stockbroker. I'm not saying it's there's no need for a stockbroker. I'm not saying there's no need for a doctor, but you have to understand the shift in how the consumer navigates that and where the value points are to be the professional. And I think it's important to understand it gets weird when you start talking about it, right? But at the end of the day, I think it's important. We're on this call to talk trends, and that's really a trend, right?
Yeah. Well, if you want to take it just a step further of what's available out there or soon to be available, I mean, soon is relative. In the next, let's say 5 to 10 years, our next generation of realtor will have to deal with most likely blockchain, which blockchain adds in another element of kind of what Zillow and Opendoor are doing, but I think it makes it that much easier for a real estate transaction to go from list to close, that the consumer can look at and go, I can actually do all of this all by myself if they really wanted to.
And I still use a stockbroker. I still use a travel agent. I still go to the doctor, right?
Yeah, the difference in real estate is you have emotion to it.
Yeah.
And you need it is very beneficial. You don't need, but it is very advantageous to have a person that can get you to that closing through all that emotion.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, a couple things we should probably make mention. Mesquite mixed use development will include shopping and industrial right on I-20 East. Not too far from us, right? I think this is a pretty big 235 acre mixed use project. It's worthy of paying attention to near Lawson Road, right? Anything else you know about this?
Not a whole lot. It was pretty eyebrow raising whenever I saw that. It's a huge project.
Yeah.
But it kind of going along with how we've been talking about Dallas gets insulated with a lot of what's coming in. And we were talking about the other day, Wells Fargo having their headquarters come in, that there's 4,000 employees there. You've got Goldman, what was it? Yeah, Goldman Sachs that's bringing in another 2,500 on top of what they already have. And then TIAA that's bringing in another 2,000 employees into Frisco. You've got a lot of people that are coming into the Metroplex. And while it may not be this area, you'll see those people in Irving or Frisco spread out, and we'll start feeling that.
Absolutely. But it's still, we worry about the economy shifting. We worry about the industry going backwards. These things in our backyard are insurance or insulation against our industry in a good way.
Yeah, Jerry Jones announced that he and some other real estate investors last week are going to build a 1 million square foot speculative industrial build. I mean, nobody leasing it out yet. They're just going to build 1 million square feet of industrial.
Wow. The DFW counties where the most expensive homes are being built. I found this interesting. I think luxury, I'll use the word luxury. Luxury is an emotional buy, not a logical buy. People buy luxury homes because they want them, and there's emotional motivation behind that. Yet, what's luxury, Jim? What do you consider luxury?
I don't even know anymore, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, just a couple of years ago, we were talking about our area 650, 700, and and that's completely changed. I don't even know where to start right now.
Yeah, I mean, you take $1 million house these days. I mean, to some people, that's an emotional buy. But a lot of times that's a normal family house to some people, right? So it's actually a logical buy, not an emotional buy. So it depends on the person and where they sit in their life and what they bring to the table, whether or not it's a emotional purchase or a logical purchase. But I always wonder if luxury will be disrupted if the economy changes. And because the cost of money obviously is higher the more you borrow, right? Yet I find it interesting that luxury is just abundant in our backyard, right?
Yeah.
Collin County was the most expensive home building spot in Texas and 25 most expensive in the nation. Denton was next highest, then Tarrant County. Rockwall seems to still be pretty affordable from what I can see.
Yeah, when you take a look at the entire Metroplex, I absolutely agree on that. And I think that's why we draw the people from Frisco and a lot of the areas that have high luxury.
Yeah. Well, Jim, what do we want to summarize our call today? I think expireds is a new trend. I think you have to understand 2020 and 2021, put a bracket around it and call it pandemic, call it excess. If you look back to 2019, we're pretty good, normal, healthy growth. If you took out the last 2 years. And the other thing I would add, and I'm probably stealing all your talking points, Jim, is anytime there's change, people are going to always first show up with emotion.
Yeah.
The emotion's going to dissipate, and logical way forward is always the best approach. So if you find yourself in an emotional place around what's going on, find a good consultant, find a peer, talk through it till you find your way in logic action moving forward. What would you add?
Nothing. I don't want to add anything else there because I want people to focus on what you just said, because that's perfect.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one.
See you later.